let me say loudly and proudly, we do not have a super PAC. Virtually every other presidential campaign, Republican and Democratic, has a super PAC, which means that millionaires and billionaires can contribute unlimited sums of money. And in most cases, the super PAC will have more influence over the candidate's campaign than the candidate himself or herself will. Well, I don't represent corporate America's agenda. I don't represent the interests of billionaires. I don't want their money. So we're going to do it the old-fashioned way. We're going to ask individuals for contributions, and we have done extraordinarily well. And I'm so gratified that in this campaign so far, and this is just an indication of the support we have, over 400,000 Americans in 50 states in this country have made individual contributions. And you know what the average contribution is? $31.20. So that tells me and should tell you that we are running a people's campaign. And it's not just the individual contributions that we've received. It's the kind of volunteer network we're developing here in Iowa, New Hampshire, and all across this country. Well over 100,000 people right now are knocking on doors, distributing leaflets, making telephone calls. So in terms of this campaign, the other guys may have more money than we do. They will. They will run more TV ads than we will. That's true. But at the end of the day, we will win. Because when ordinary people come together, there is no stopping us. And that's what this campaign is about. What this campaign is about is, in fact, bringing the American people together and not letting folks to continue to divide us for years. Right-wing Republicans have won because they've divided this country, black against white, native-born against people who have immigrated, men against women, gays against straights. We have got to come together. Together and say loudly and clearly, this great country, our government, belongs to all of us, not just a handful of billionaires. And let me tell you another way that this campaign is different than other campaigns. And that is, let me tell you a truth, which is not a happy truth, but nonetheless, it is a truth that you should know. And that is that any candidate who comes before you and says, vote for me, I'm great, everybody else is terrible, and vote for me and I'm going to go to Washington and solve all the problems facing this country, that candidate is not telling you the truth. Because the truth is that no president, not Bernie Sanders, not anybody else, can by himself or herself take on the extraordinary power of corporate America, of Wall Street, of the corporate media, of major campaign donors. No one president can do it. The only way we bring about the change that this country desperately needs is when we create a political revolution of millions of Americans coming together. So tonight, I'm not here just to ask for your support. in this campaign. I am asking for your support. But I'm asking for something more, deeper, more long-standing. And that is, I need you to be involved in a political revolution which revitalizes American democracy. In the last election, in November of 2014, midterm election, it wasn't that the Republicans won, it was that Democrats lost. And Democrats lost because the voter turnout was beyond abysmal. 63% of the American people didn't vote, 80% of young people didn't vote. And that is when the big money interests win. They want the young people of this country to think that politics is irrelevant. Why are you wasting your time coming to a political meeting? Why aren't you out partying, watching TV, going to the football game? And the answer is that you understand that in fact politics and who is elected to the president, the Senate, and the House will determine the future of this country, and you intend to be involved in that process. So I need your help, not just to get elected, I do need that, but I need your help even more significantly the day after the election. I need your help to make sure that when Congress knows that millions of Americans understand what's going on, are paying attention to what's going on, are demanding that Congress works on behalf of working families and not the billionaire class. When that happens, we are going to transform America. We live today, right now, we live in the wealthiest country in the history of the world. That's where we are today. Wealthiest country in the history of the world. Most Americans don't know that. You know why they don't know that? They're too busy working 2 or 3 jobs. They're too busy worrying about how they're going to be able to send their kids to college. They're too busy worrying about how they're going to pay for health care when they get sick. So yeah, we live in the wealthiest country in the history of the world. Problem is, almost all of that wealth rests in the hands of the few. In America today, we have more income and wealth inequality than any major country on earth. In America today, there is more income and wealth inequality than at any time since 1928. In America today, the top 1/10 of 1%, not 1%, 1/10 of 1% owns almost as much wealth as the bottom 90%. In America today, one family, the Walton family, owns more wealth than the bottom 40% of the American people. In America today, 58% of all new income earned this year will go to the top 1%. Brothers and sisters, this is not the economy we need. We need an economy that meets the needs of working families, not just millionaires and billionaires. So this campaign is sending a very simple and straightforward message to the billionaire class. And that message is, your greed is destroying this great country, and we're not going to let you continue acting the way you are. You are not going to get huge tax breaks when children in America go hungry. You are not going to continue sending our jobs to China when millions of Americans desperately need work in this country. You're not going to continue doing what this company here in Cedar Rapids, Ingredion, is doing, and that is give huge compensation packages to the CEOs and cut benefits and wages for your workers. Not going to continue. You are not going to continue stashing your billions in profits in the Cayman Islands and in Bermuda and other tax havens. You are going to start paying your fair share of taxes in this country. When we talk about the economy, it's not just the grotesque level, and it is a grotesque level, of income and wealth inequality. It is also the understanding that while today we are in much better shape economically than they were 7 years ago when Bush left office, nonetheless, for 40 years, the great middle class of this country, once the envy of the world, has been disappearing. Despite huge increases in productivity and in technology, the average American is working longer hours for lower wages. In fact, some of you may not know this, people in America work the longest hours of any people in a major industrialized society. People are working incredible hours. In fact, 85% of male workers are working more than 40 hours a week. 65% of women workers are working more than 40 hours a week. We want an economy that works for all of us. We want decent jobs and decent pay in this country. And when we talk about the economy, we have got to talk about unemployment. Just today, as it happens every month, U.S. government comes out with statistics on unemployment. Well, there are two sets of statistics. And one set, I think today, said that official unemployment in America is 5.1%. But there's another set. And that says if you include people who have given up looking for work, if you include people who are working part-time when they want to work full-time, real unemployment is over 10%. In other words, we have a major jobs crisis in America. And let me tell you something else that almost nobody talks about. And that is the tragedy of youth unemployment in America. No one talks about it. I asked a study be done for me by an economic think tank about 6 weeks ago, and this is what they found. Listen to this. For kids who graduated high school in America, who are between the ages of 17 and 20, high school graduates 17 to 20, if they were whites, real unemployment, giving up looking for work, part-time, no job at all, 33%. If they were Hispanic, 36%. If they were African American, 51%. In other words, we don't talk about it. We are turning our backs on an entire generation of working class young people. Kids who want to get their lives together, want to get a job, want to make some money, want to get out of the house. We got 5.5 million young people in this country who are not in school and are not working. They're hanging out on street corners in Iowa and Vermont. And if you want to know why in America we have more people in jail than any other country on earth, it has a lot to do with this high level of youth unemployment. I believe from the bottom of my heart that it makes a lot more sense for this country and our government to be investing in education and jobs rather than jails and incarceration. Here is the simple truth. It costs a lot less money to send kids to college and universities than it does to put them in jail. So I want to work with you to end this embarrassment of our country having more people in jail, disproportionately, by the way, people of color. I want to end that embarrassment, and instead, I want our country to have the best educated population in the world. And when we talk about the economy, and when we talk about income and wealth inequality, we talk about high rates of unemployment, there's another issue we've got to put squarely on the table. And that is that millions of people in our country are working at wages that are just too damn low. The truth is, there are people in Iowa, Vermont, and all over this country who are working 40 and 50 hours a week, and yet they end up having to go to the emergency food shelf in order to get food to adequately feed their families. And that is why, in my view, we have to understand that a $7.25 federal minimum wage is in fact a starvation wage and must be raised. The minimum wage must become a living wage, which in my view means $15 an hour over the next few years. The simple truth is that nobody in America who works 40 hours a week should have to live in poverty. And that's what we have got to fight for. In poverty. And that's what we have got to fight for. Aware that here in Iowa, you got a lot of politicians trumping through the state. You're a very popular state for politicians. And many of my Republican colleagues who come through the state, go around the country, they talk about family values. Have you heard them talk about family values? What they mean by family values is that women in America should not have the right to control their own bodies. I disagree. What they mean is that women are not smart enough to be able to purchase the contraceptives they need. I disagree. And what they also mean is that our gay brothers and sisters should not be able to get married or enjoy the other legal benefits of being an American. I disagree. I have 4 great kids. I have 7 beautiful grandchildren. My wife Jane and I have been married for 27 years. And we believe in family, and we believe in family values. But our family values are just a little bit different than my Republican colleagues. And when I talk about family values, the first thing that comes to my mind is the need to end the international embarrassment of the United States of America being the only major country on earth that does not guarantee paid family and medical leave. And here's what that is about. Today in Iowa, today in Vermont, and all over this country, women gave birth. And for those of you who are parents, you know what an extraordinary and unforgettable day that is, the birth of your son or daughter. Now, if that mom has sufficient income, she will be able to stay home and nurse that baby and bond with that baby and love that baby for weeks and months in the most important time of that baby's life. And that is a good thing. But if that mom is a working class or low income person, she will have to be separated from her baby after 1 week or 2 weeks because she has to go back to work to earn enough income to provide for her family. That is not a family value. That is the opposite of a family value. That is why, as president, I will fight to have the United States join the rest of the industrialized world and provide at least 12 weeks paid family and medical leave to every family in America. And by the way, you may not know, we are also the only major country that doesn't have guaranteed paid sick time or paid vacation time. We've got to end that embarrassment as well. Now, if real unemployment in America is over 10%, if youth unemployment is 30, 40, 50%, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that we need a massive federal jobs program to put Americans back to work. And when you have an infrastructure, roads, bridges, rail, airports, water systems, wastewater plants, levees and dams that are collapsing all over America, we know that real work has got to be done. That is why I've introduced legislation that over a 5-year period would put $1 trillion into rebuilding our crumbling infrastructure and, by the way, create up to 13 million decent paying jobs. And when we talk about jobs, it is not only important to create new jobs, it is important to prevent the loss of more jobs because of our disastrous trade policy. I am a former congressman and a senator who has voted against NAFTA, CAFTA, permanent normal trade relations with China. And I will help lead the effort against the Trans-Pacific Partnership. We need a trade policy which demands that corporate America invest in the United States of America and not just in China, Vietnam, and other countries. often asked, people come up to me and they say, well, Bernie, which issue, a lot of issues out there, which problem is the most important? And it's impossible really for me to say, because all of these issues are enormously important. But there is one issue which is absolutely unique in that it impacts every other issue. It impacts the economy, it impacts women's rights, it impacts the environment, it impacts healthcare, it impacts everything. And that issue is the fact that 5 years ago, the United States Supreme Court, in one of the worst decisions in the history of the United States, voted by a 5-4 vote for the Citizens United case. And what the Supreme Court did in Citizens United by a 5-4 vote, this is what they did. They said to the wealthiest people in this country, well, guys, you already own much of the economy. We are now going to give you the opportunity to purchase the United States government. And my friends, that is exactly what they are trying to do right now. One family, the Koch brothers, the second wealthiest family in America, an extreme right-wing family who want to abolish Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, the Environmental Protection Agency. This one family will be spending $900 million in this election cycle in order to elect right-wing Republican candidates who will serve the interests of the wealthy and the powerful. When you have one family, and they're not the only ones, but when you have one family spending more money on an election than either the Democratic Party or the Republican Party, you are not talking about a democratic system. You are talking about an oligarchy, and we have got to stop that. The truth is that as a result of Citizens United, the American campaign finance system is totally corrupt, and the foundations of American democracy are being undermined. That is the simple and sad truth. Now, I have not made many campaign promises so far, but here's one that I have made, and I repeat to you, that any nominee of mine to the United States Supreme Court will have to be loud and clear in saying that he or she will move immediately, as quickly as possible, to rehear Citizens United and vote to overturn that decision. By the way, overturning Citizens United is just the start. What I would like to see, and I know you would like to see, is this country be the most vibrant democracy in the world. We want a country in which we have one of the highest voter turnouts, not one of the lowest. We want a country in which anybody, any person here tonight, whether you're conservative, progressive, moderate, whatever you may be, if you want to serve publicly, you should be able to run for office without having to beg wealthy people for campaign contributions. And that is why I strongly believe in public funding of campaigns. And when we talk about the major issues facing our country. It goes without saying, there's no debate about this, that we live in a highly competitive global economy. And if we are going to survive economically, we need, now and in the future, the best educated workforce in the world. It is absolutely insane that today, as we speak, there are hundreds of thousands of bright young people who have done really well in high school, people who are qualified to get into college, but they can't get into college for one reason, and that is their family does not have enough money. And that is why I have introduced legislation and will make happen as president a process by which every public college and university in America will be tuition free. I want kids in the 4th grade and the 6th grade here in Iowa and in Vermont to know that no matter what the income of their family may be, no matter the fact that their parents didn't go to college, no matter the fact that they may not know anybody who went to college, I want those kids to know that if they study hard, they do their homework, they will be able to make it into the middle class and get a college education regardless of their income. And our legislation also deals with the absurdity of millions of Americans having to deal with huge amounts of student debt at high interest rates. It makes no sense to me that we have millions of folks in this country who are paying 6, 8, 10% interest rates on their student debt when you can refinance your home for 2, 3, 4%. So that is why this legislation will allow those with student debt to refinance at the lowest interest rates possible, and we're going to get the government out of profiteering on these huge debts. When people say, well, what are some of the major issues facing our country and the world? Let me tell you one. And that is, as adults, as citizens, we have a moral responsibility to make certain that the planet Earth, our only planet, that the planet we leave to our children and our grandchildren is a healthy planet and a habitable planet. In terms of climate change, I hope you all understand the debate is over. The scientific community is virtually unanimous in telling us climate change is real. It is caused by human activity. It is already causing devastating problems in the U.S. and all over the world. And what the scientists tell us is if we do not get our act together, if we do not act boldly and aggressively in the next few years, this planet Earth will be 5 degrees to 10 degrees Fahrenheit warmer by the end of this century. That is cataclysmic. That means more drought, more flood, more extreme weather disturbances, more rising sea level, more acidification of the ocean, and what the CIA tells us, it will mean more international conflict as peoples around the world fight for limited amounts of water and land to grow their crops. we have the moral responsibility to work and lead this world, to work with China, India, Russia, to transform our energy system away from fossil fuel to energy efficiency and sustainable energy. I sit on both the Environmental Committee and the Energy Committee, and I talk to a lot of the scientists. And the good news is that we have the knowledge and we have the technology, which will only get better in years to come, to do it. And what my Republican colleagues have got to understand is they cannot continue to deny science while they're continuing to take huge amounts of campaign contributions from the fossil fuel industry.